So you decided to buy a house and you hear all this news about it being a seller's market. And you're getting freaked out thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to win in a multiple offer situation? Well, today we're going to talk about some strategies and ways to make your offer rise to the top of a multiple offer situation. So stay tuned. Gallant here. Welcome. I'm a full-time realtor here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And on my channel, I offer real estate tips and local knowledge to help you fall in love with Colorado Springs. So today we're going to talk about winning and strategies that you can do to rise above the pile of multiple offers that you face in this strong seller's market as a buyer. So the very first thing you need to figure out is, what does the seller truly need? It's not always highest and best. Sometimes it is, but it isn't always. So the very first thing that your real estate professional should do is contact the other agent. That's number one. What do they need? How many offers are on the table? Are they above asking, which typically they are in this market? But maybe it's a post-occupancy agreement that they need. Maybe it's a quick close that they need. There's a variety of things that a seller could need to choose your offer above others. So the very first step would be to have your real estate professional contact the listing agent and ask, what is the seller truly hoping to achieve in this offer? So what is a post-occupancy agreement? I'm seeing it a lot more because it's very challenging to sell and buy in this market. So you might see a 60-day post-occupancy need from a seller. In other words, they need enough time to go out and find a home on their own once they're under contract with you and be able to buy their home with the proceeds from this particular transaction. So they might ask for 60 days post-occupancy agreement, and you two would come to a negotiation as to what you would pay, or they would be paying you for rent for those 2 months. Now, if you are doing an owner-occupied loan, you have up to 60 days to move into that property. So you would still be within the expectations of that mortgage loan. So no need to worry about that. But you do need to worry about who's going to cover the insurance. You're going to have insurance policy on it, but you're going to ask for them to have a renter's policy. So there are some things that you need to discuss. How is it going to be cleaned? When are they going to move out? Those types of things. But we are seeing post-occupancy agreement needs in this market. So be thoughtful of that and consider that. Are you able to wait a couple of months to move into that property to win that offer? Now, in a seller's market, they are truly in the driver's seat. So in the past, you might have been able to ask for closing costs or quite a few items in your inspection objection. In this market, to win in this transaction, you really want to have minimal expectations from them. Pretty much not going to be able to ask for seller concessions for closing costs. You're not going to win that deal if there's multiple offers. When you get to the inspection objection, where you've done your inspection and you are asking for certain things to be fixed, I would limit it to health and safety issues only. And so when you're looking at the properties, look at them with that eye. If you are someone who has some abilities to DIY things, then you might be okay with certain properties. Some of you may not. So you have to make that decision. You want a more turnkey home that doesn't have as much, but those are some things to think about in your offer. You still, and I highly suggest that you always do an inspection. Now, you may be able to waive the inspection objection, meaning that you're not going to send them anything. You're going to accept the property as is. But I would rather suggest to you that you do the inspection and you indicate that you're only going to be asking for health and safety issues on your inspection objection. Now, sometimes people ask for personal property, like the hot tub to be included or the swing set in the back. And in many situations, the seller may be willing to leave that because it's more of a hassle to get it out of the property than to leave it there. But things like a pool table or furniture, those might be things that might throw you to the bottom of the pile. So be careful on what you ask for in personal property. In fact, when that real estate professional that you're working with calls the listing agent, Have her or him make that conversation about things that you were hoping to put into that contract and see if that's something that the sellers would consider before you make that offer, just to be sure that your offer still is meeting what the sellers are needing. Now, while it's not necessary to put a huge down payment in a strong seller's market, if you are making a larger down payment, that is looked at as a plus. Now, if you are making a larger down payment, one of the things that I like to suggest to my clients is offer a larger earnest money deposit. In other words, I'm putting more skin in the game. So if I'm going to be putting $50,000 down, I might recommend that they put $10,000 down as earnest money, because you're saying, I'm committed to taking this transaction to the closing table and risking $10,000 in doing that. But if you are putting more money down, it's going to be a credit at the end of the transaction anyways. So putting that earnest money up front is saying that you're a little bit more serious. And if you have a larger down payment and the potential to do that, it's one other thing that helps. It's a good strategy to help you win that offer. Okay, so we know most offers are going above asking, up to 3 to 5% over the asking price. So what I am suggesting, first, your real estate professional should be running the comps. They should be looking at what is in the area within a mile or a half mile. Did properties in that square footage, sell in that higher price point that you're offering? I know that the listing agent already did their due diligence and really tried to find the right price and price it fairly. But in this strong seller's market with multiple offers, things are going above asking. They just are. So I am writing in a lot of my offers what's called an appraisal gap. So let's talk about what an appraisal gap is. There are two parts to an appraisal gap. You, as the buyer, are stating to the seller that I am waiving part of the appraisal provision in the contract, and I am willing to come to the table with a certain amount of money up and above the appraised value that it comes in at. So say the asking price of the house was $450,000. You make an offer of $470,000. That's $20,000 above. Now, your real estate professional said it's pretty likely it could come in at $465,000, $470,000. So you felt that you didn't want to put a full $20,000 on that appraisal gap. You could say something like, buyer is willing to come to the table with $10,000 above the appraised value up to your offer price of $470,000. Now, here's the caveat. You want to make sure you've got this extra sentence in there that says, seller agrees to accept and execute an amend extend for any modified appraised value plus $10,000. You know what I'm saying? It's like whatever that appraised value is plus $10,000. The seller is agreeing to sign an amend extend for any modified purchase price that might occur based on the appraisal price. So that appraisal clause is very clear. It protects both the buyer and the seller. It's fair. I mean, $10,000 over an appraised value is quite a big offer. You don't necessarily have to do that. This is just a scenario. But that clarity of that appraisal gap verbiage can sometimes cinch the deal. It gives them a little bit of safety. Now, it may be that even though you offer that $10,000, it might come in at $465,000 and you only come to the table with $5,000. And in some situations, the last 5 I've done, they've actually come in at the offer price and no money had to come to the table. They were paying for it, the property at the value that the appraiser said it was. So appraisal gaps are one strategy that can help you win in this multiple offer situation. Now, another one that people like to use is called an escalation clause. Now, personally, there's pros and cons of it to me. Now, the escalation clause says, I am willing to come to the table with $1,000 above your highest offer. Now, you must prove to me that you have that offer. You've got to send me a valid copy of a contract. You can white out the important information except for the price. And then you're going to offer $1,000 over it, up to a certain amount. Now, here's where the con comes in. I have agents that I've spoken to that if they have a multiple offer situation and there's several escalation clauses, they will take the offer that has the highest escalation clause potential, and they will simply, the max that they say, they will counter that offer back and say, I am removing the escalation clause and we're countering back to you for your max offer. And so in doing that, they find out, did that person and that offer truly want to come to the table with that amount? That's the con of it. Some people can do that. And just if you sign it, then of course you're accepting that higher amount as the buyer. Doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes the escalation clause does behave as it should, where your listing agent sits down and looks at all the multiple offers and does a spreadsheet and presents it to you, and you can see which one has the most beneficial price to you if price was the listing agent's objective. So there's pros and cons of the escalation clause. I personally like to tell my buyers, what is the highest amount that you were willing to walk away from this property, that if you lost it and you found out that the next person got or paid $1,000 more than you did, that you were okay because you weren't willing to pay that price. So I'd rather you know that you laid all the cards on the table, that's as high as you were willing to go, and you're comfortable walking away if you did not win and somebody took it higher than you. And I think that's a better place to sit. But escalation clause is something that you can do in your strategy approach on your offer to help you rise. There's one more strategy that some agents and real estate professionals like to utilize and suggest to some clients, and it's called a letter. So it's just a letter that you send to the seller explaining why you want to buy this house, why it's important to you, what you loved about their property. Now, I'm not really a fan of that. And in fact, in our market, we are seeing in the MLS agent notes, many listing agents have suggested to their sellers to not even read them, to not take them, and they will list in the MLS that we're not accepting any seller or buyer letters. So you can write a love letter, that's what they call them, if you choose, but you've got to be really careful because you could be crossing over some of the housing stipulations that are against the law. You can't speak to age, you can't speak to children, you can't speak to classes, races, you can't speak to any of that. So it does help in some markets, and people do write these buyer letters to the seller. That is one strategy that can happen, but I'm not truly a fan personally because I just feel it's more difficult on the seller to really read through these. It might be beneficial, it might not, but it also opens up a potential liability risk for both the seller and the buyer. So I would steer clear of it, but it is a strategy that some use for winning in a multiple offer situation. Now, obviously, the very last thing that you can do is pay cash, but not everybody has that. There's a lot of people that would say, in my market, I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, they think, oh, all these people are coming in from other states where their property values are so high. The equity has risen in those states also, so they've cashed out and they're able to pay cash for a property. There's also real estate investors who have done very well in this market. It's time for them to sell their investment properties, pull the equity out, and take that and buy something with cash. So there are people in this market buying with cash, and of course that's always going to typically win, not always, but it will typically win in a multiple offer situation. And the reason it wins is a couple folds. Usually they don't have an appraisal. There's no mortgage lender, so there's no need to do an appraisal. And they can close quicker. They can close very fast. So a seller that's looking for a quick close and doesn't want any hassle with doing an inspection objection. Now they can still do an inspection, but they're typically going to buy it very quick and be done with that transaction and on to their next one. So present your best offer, feel good about it, know that you're going to be able to walk away and say, I wasn't willing to pay that much for that property, it wasn't worth it to me, and I am good. I'm on to the next listing that we can check out and see if this is the right home for us. So in a strong seller's market, it's tough. It's just tough. They are in the driver's seat. They truly are. We are looking at situations of 5 to 30 offers on one property. And I'm hearing in other markets, it's even craziness. But it doesn't mean that you can't secure a contract. It doesn't mean that you can't get under contract. It's happening every day. And in fact, if you want to follow me on my daily real estate market in a minute, you can check out our market on a day-to-day basis. It's moving fast. And to me, it's just one challenge to face. It's hard emotionally as the buyer because you might be 6, 7 offers till you finally get one under contract. But that's what it takes in this market. So as you approach it, if you're a buyer in this seller's market, there's some strategies to discuss with your real estate professional. Of course, I'd love to be that person. But if you have someone that you're working with now, discuss those strategies. Make sure that they're helping you present your best offer so that you can win on that multiple offer situation. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about this market or you'd like to discuss the strategies, feel free to reach out to me below. All my contact information is there. If you found value in this information, please like and subscribe to my channel and follow me where I just talk about all the cool things that happen in Colorado Springs and offer some real estate tips and knowledge about our area. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.